Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is in your current time zone. It is I, Sam. Hello everyone. And today we're doing another video for the Bronies UK channel. So, what is today's video about? Well, in a nutshell, it is about this book, The Journal of the Two Sisters. I picked this up off eBay for £8, brand new, and I picked it up largely because I've been told in the past it's worth reading and that it is canon. Now, it's actually two books in one. You've got the Journal of the Two Sisters, which is Celestia and Luna's kind of, in a sense, it's almost like their story before they gain the cutie marks, and then after that, I haven't read the last bit yet, which is basically the main sixes kind of journal, which is obviously based off various points in the series and seasons of MLP. The Journal of the Two Sisters, specifically Celestia and Luna's story, is it canon, so on and so forth. Well, from what I've been told, it is canon. And there's a lot of interesting stuff in this. It's pretty simple, but it's interesting. To start off with, really, if we just start off like the very first thing, the opening page. Dear Diary, my name is Celestia. Today my sister Luna and I are to be crowned princesses of Equestria. I'm starting this journal so we can both write about our amazing adventures as princesses. Well, I hope they are amazing. I don't actually know if they will be amazing. I'm assuming they will be amazing, but I guess I shouldn't assume they will be amazing because I've never been the princess of Pegasi, unicorns or earth ponies before. Maybe they won't be amazing. Maybe I won't be amazing. Maybe I'll be really rotten. What if I'm known as Celestia, the really rotten princess of Equestria? Okay, calm down, Celestia. You're freaking yourself out. Take a breath. You're going to work hard, like you always do. As long as you work hard, you're going to do your best. Okay, that's better. See, what interests me about that opening bit is Celestia sounds a lot like Twilight. So, can't help but wonder if when she was younger, did she have the same worries and same angst as Twilight did? Clearly she worries about not being the princess that everybody would look up to and not doing a good job. Much like how Twilight reacts at times. Basically, it goes on to state, first of all, I just want to say that I can't even believe that Luna and I are going to be princesses. It all happened so suddenly and unexpectedly. A very unusual unicorn sorcerer who calls himself Starswell and Bearded approached us. And when I say unusual, I'm not being rude, it's just accurate. First of all, he became the Bearded, quite honestly, because he has the longest brown beard I've ever seen. Second of all, he wore a large wizard hat and cloak with stars, moons, patterns on them, and the edges were covered with bells. Basically, it goes on to mention about, obviously, Smart Cookie from the Earth Bronies, Private Pansy of the Pegasi, Starswell's apprentice, Clover the Clever of the Unicorns, and basically they mention about the struggles between Pegasi, Unicorns and Earth Ponies. Since the tribes came to a peaceful understanding and established Equestria, they wanted rulers to help them uphold the peace, which why they came to us. So, at whatever point this is, Celestia and Luna were tracked down by Starswell just maybe a few years after Equestria was founded. It does go further on in this book to mention that there are other alicorns. It doesn't say anything about them, but it does state that alicorns do age differently from normal unicorns, Pegasi and Earth ponies. So I've always wondered is if in the MLP universe will we see any other alicorns outside of obviously the princesses? Will you get to see perhaps alicorns from a distant land? Because there's a genuine belief that Celestia and Luna came from a distant land. The next entry after that is basically is Luna's entry. So it follows like this. Diary. We are Luna, and we are to be crowned princess of Equestria. Thou art our royal diary, in which we shall write our most profound thoughts of being said princess, and... oh, forget it. I was going to try writing the Royal Canterlot voice, which Celestia and I learned when we were fillies. The alicorns thought it was an important part of our education, but we both thought speaking like that every day sounded silly. The only time we really used it was when we were playing. See, when we ran and flew in the hills of Canterlot, we pretended we were princesses and talked in a royal way. Being all formal and hearty and stuff, but as much as it's fun to speak, writing in the Royal Canterlot voice is just too exhausting. So I'm starting over. I'm Luna. This is Celestia and Ma's journal, where we're going to make note of interesting stuff that happens while we're princesses. or as it's formally called, the Era of the Two Sisters! Explanation point. So it basically mentions, obviously, it's the coronation and all that stuff and what's going on. I find it interesting how they mentioned that when they were fillies, they used to play in Canterlot. So, Canterlot then, has that been there a long time? And is that perhaps maybe a section of maybe where the Alicorns came from and somehow that got moved to Equestria? Again, it's interesting. Basically, obviously it mentions a coronation. At this point in time, the moon and the sun are raised and lowered by a group of unicorns that are led by Starswell. So at this point, Celestia and Luna are blank flanks, they don't have the cutie marks. And from what you find out in the book, it mentions that that's quite normal because Alicorns age at a different rate. From what I can gather, when they appear to be as adults, they're technically not. So whether or not it's in a case that they age slower. So basically the next chapter, this is an interesting point, this is another Celestia entry. Because Alicorns age at a different rate than the rest of the pony speed, the rest of the pony races, Luna and I don't have our cutie marks yet. Being a blank flank at our age never felt unusual. I've always known that I would get my cutie mark at the proper time. But now that we are surrounded by so many ponies who have their cutie marks, and are so much younger than we are, I must admit it feels a bit odd. Hopefully now that we are princesses, Luna and I will find our true calling and finally get our cutie marks. So that right there, Alicorns age at a different rate than the rest of the ponies' races. That right there suggests that they're possibly aging slower. Like, maybe they physically look older, but from an aging perspective, maybe when they hit a certain age, they slow down dramatically. In regards to Celestia and Luna from an immortality perspective, I personally believe that their immortality comes from being linked to the sun and the moon. Because you're talking about two objects in the sky that have been there for millions, if not billions of years, and will continue to be there for many millions and millions and millions of years onwards. That probably is the link to their immortality. So basically the next chapter is from Luna, just basically talking about them looking for a place to build the castle of the two sisters. There is an interesting point here. At the edge there's a ravine. Deep in the ravine there's a really cool tree. I don't know, there's just something about it, something magical. I just got this feeling when I saw it. I think that this is where we should build our castle. Celestia mentions it next, stating, Luna and I were talking with Starswell about the tree in the ravine at the edge of the Everfree forest. He told us that it's not any ordinary tree, it's the Tree of Harmony. Oh my gosh, I couldn't believe it. I totally flipped. I mean, I literally flipped in the air. Luna snorted at me and rolled her eyes because I'm such a dog. But to me, it was like meeting the most famous tree in the world. But that's because it's actually the most famous tree in the world. I've heard the Tree of Harmony in books, but I don't know that it actually existed. According to the legend, the Tree of Harmony is incredibly powerful. It's said to hold the elements of all that is good and true. It's such a fascinating tree, and I'm so drawn to it. On it are these three markings, a sun, a moon, and a star. I've asked Starswell what these stand for, but he seems to have no idea. I don't know why, but I feel like the sun image is calling to me. Isn't that weird? Luna and I are both drawn to the Tree of Harmony, that we decided to build the castle of the two sisters above the ravine. Starswell agreed, saying having our castle built near the Tree of Harmony will give us strength, help us protect Equestria. So, that right there is interesting because effectively you're talking about Celestia, Luna and Twilight's cutie marks, which interestingly are, as we know, on the Tree of Harmony. Now, the fact that they were there thousands of years before Celestia and Luna found the Tree of Harmony, and many years before they even got the cutie marks, and probably many thousands of years before Twilight was even born, heavily suggests that Twilight, Celestia and Luna have some sort of destiny. They have a destiny which could well come into the series. They've clearly got a link. Another reference in here, Luna goes looking in the Everfree forest for supplies while they're building the castle, and she encounters a manticore. So basically, after meeting the manticore, it takes flight. I took to the air to dodge the attack, but he just came right after me. It's Since manticores have wings too, of course, the two of us began fighting in the sky. The manticore tried to strike me with his massive claws, while I tried to kick him with my hooves. I realised that I also had magic on my side, so I fired at him with my horn, trying to stun him. But the manticore was oblivious, much more used to fighting than I was. He avoided every one of my shots. I was beginning to tire. Suddenly, Sally came flying in to help me. I had never been so happy to see my sister. She shot a powerful ray at the manticore that was doubled by another ray from the ground. I heard a jingle of bells, and when I looked down I saw Star Swirl. And it turns out that Luna can actually understand the manticore. And basically it goes on to state that she kind of has the ability to understand creatures that are of the night, which makes sense, her being the princess of the night. In a sense, she's a bit like Fluttershy, that she can understand other creatures that other ponies can't understand. So, again, there's little inklings here as if maybe the magic of the elements was at work before they were even discovered. It's interesting, there's a lot of little bits in here from stating, Celeste stating that it's always been clear me and Luna were meant to rule together. There's a little entry here from Luna. This is during the building of the castle. So, dear Diary, you know what is the best part of building? A super weird castle with trapdoors and movie walls and creepy organ with tunnels? I get to test it out to make sure it works. And once I know it does, I get to mess with every pony. This is going to be so awesome, Luna. Now, one of the things in this book that you pick up on is that Luna comes across, especially at this point in time, as being very much a joker. She feels very much almost like Pinkie Pie. She likes to have a laugh, and she's not really serious, and she does come across as being the younger sister. Where, if you kind of look at her now in the series, she comes across as being a bit serious. Though at the same time, she does have that soft spot when she tries to help other ponies out in her dreams. There's a really interesting segment here about Princess Platinum, who obviously was a unicorn princess. So basically, it goes to say that they have a meeting with some of the leaders. So King Bullion, who was a leader of the unicorns, was fine and quite secure in the situation that we were now co-rulers of Equestria. However, his daughter, Princess Platinum, appeared to have her tail in a twist about the whole thing. In fact, she behaved really rudely. Princess Platinum said that we had no right to be in charge of any pony if we didn't even have our cutie marks. You hear Don say, how dare we think we can rule over others if we don't even know what our true calling is. While it is true that we still don't have our cutie marks, we have lived far longer than this arrogant princess, and have been doing a fine job overseeing Equestria. Basically, it goes into a bit of detail that Luna plays a prank on her with the help of a manticore friend, and Princess Platinum eventually apologises, and basically they all become friends. Just skipping forward, because there's something, there's a lot in this book I could talk about, but there's one thing, right, here we are. This isn't it. So basically, fast forwarding a bit, there's some interesting references to Starswell and his own library. Specifically how he was working on a spell that had something to do with cutie marks, which is obviously the spell that was basically made Twilight become an Alicorp. There's also a lot of references in this book to spells involving time travel. Basically, this is the following. Starswell invited Luna and me over to his library today, obviously very excited to share something with us. The two of us were waiting for him for a while when suddenly he appeared out of nowhere. Luna and I were very startled when Starswell announced with great excitement that he had finally mastered the time travel spell. In fact, Luna and I had just witnessed his return from his first trip. Luna gave me a look and nudged me to say something to Starswell. I delicately said that we were very excited for him, but I was a bit surprised that he'd moved forward with the spell because he and I had been trying to figure out the math for quite some time. Starswell said that he had gone through our last equations over and over again. He couldn't see any errors in it. Yes, I said, but thinking you've mastered a time spell and actually mastering a time spell are two different things. Luna gave me a look, urging me to say more. This time Starswell noticed and asked what was the problem. That's when I broke the news to Starswell that while he travelled perfectly well through time, the equations wasn't quite correct. In fact, it wasn't just a time travel spell, it was also an age travel spell. Luna levitated a mirror up to Starswell, showing him that he was now significantly younger and only had a short brown beard up his chin. It then goes on to mention that Starswell, after this, travels in time a lot. He goes forward a lot, and it heavily hints that he becomes aware of Celestia Luna's futures. He might even know about the main six. And the fact that he kind of regresses in age the first time he does the spell kind of suggests that's why he was around for so long. Before the obviously the situation with the Pony of Shadows, which obviously isn't mentioned in this book. But it's just interesting how Starswell basically travelled in time. So, is it possible? Because we've already had a time travel spell show up in the series, even though it only allowed Twilight to go back in time by about a day, and she was only able to stay in the past for about something like 12 seconds. This is heavily inciting here that there's time travel spells out there which would allow you to travel back and forth in time at will. Now, we do have the season finale of season 6, where Starlight Glimmer uses a spell of Starswell's and basically goes back in time to stop Rainbow Dash winning the race and doing a Sonic Rainbow, which is a filly, which keeps creating alternative timelines. So, can't help but wonder if the Starswell abated time travel thing in this book links into that. Will time travel play an important part in later on in the MLP franchise? Now that's an interesting question. Another bit that introduces the Crystal Kingdom, which originally I thought it was Sombra, but it isn't. It just talks about how the Crystal Heart was stolen and by a dragon, and interestingly, it mentions someone here. Give me a sec. Princess Amor, or it might be Amori. I think it's Amori. Princess Amor was basically the leader of the Crystal Kingdom. She basically was the one to discover the Crystal Heart and became the leader of the Crystal Kingdom. It was stolen by a dragon, and then Celestia uses the raw Canterlot voice to basically tell the dragon off, and the dragon gives the Crystal Heart back. Basically, the final part of the book, before the bit about the main six, which I will read later, the final bit of this book is basically how Celestia and Luna got the cutie mark. In a nutshell, basically is Starswell and the group of unicorns no longer have enough magic to raise and lower the sun. So Luna and Celestia, Starswell basically says to them, look, I know you can do it, you're alicorns, you've got more magic than I have, you can do it. They basically do it, and they get the cutie marks. All in all, this is an interesting book. Aside from it being a really interesting kind of prequel and acting as a way of seeing inside Celestia and Luna's lives before they were kind of ruling over Equestria in full, it acts as an interesting guide to basically say there's a lot more going on. I mean, I'm fascinated by this concept of Starswell travelling through time. I mean, is it entirely possible that we will get to see time travel in a big way later on in MLP? I mean, the more you read into MLP, the more you see it as a much deeper franchise. There's so much more to it. That is one of the things that I love about MLP. So anyway, that's pretty much all I've got to say. So that was the Journal of the Two Sisters, in brief. I enjoyed it. I'll do a bit on the final part of the back, which is basically the main sixes journal. I'll do that at a later date. But I hope you've enjoyed this brief video, and peace out. Have a great day, everybody.